my name is Cheryl Lundy Swift, and I've served as an educator for over 25 years. I've served as a teacher, curriculum and professional developer, coach, executive, and principal. I've been working with Learning Without Tears for over 10 years and have helped to develop literacy curriculum and a lot of manipulatives as well. I'm currently serving on the learning team as a professional learning director, and I'm super excited to partner with my colleague and friend, Leslie Zoroya. Leslie, before you introduce yourself, I want to congratulate you on being one of the recipients of the $25 million grant for literacy coaches and reading specialists from the California Department of Education Consortium of County Offices. Congrats.
Oh, thanks so much. I appreciate it. So I'm Leslie Zoroya. I'm a project director for Reading Language Arts at Los Angeles County Office of Education. And yeah, we're super excited to add this to the work that we're doing around structured literacy and specifically supporting coaches and teachers with our new grant. So there's a lot of great stuff going on in California and around the country. So all kind of good things.
It is a lot of great things going on as it relates to literacy, right? Now, it's been a pleasure learning from you while interviewing you before on Literacy Matters. Now, we had a 5-part series entitled Putting Pieces Together, Building an Effective Literacy System. Now, we looked at different aspects of putting together a cohesive system. And in those conversations, you mentioned the importance of developing a literacy action plan. And many of our school partners wanted to know more. So today, we're going to actually dive deeper into some practical steps for how to create a literacy action plan.
Okay, sounds good. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So what actually, when we think about a literacy action plan, I think it's really important that we have a shared understanding of what we mean when we say a literacy action plan.
Yeah, so I look at a literacy action plan as a way for school sites or districts to build a systemic accountability so that we can ensure that the literacy work actually gets done. Yeah. So a lot of times teachers are trained in a reading program for an afternoon or two, and then just sort of expected to go into their classrooms and be experts, be little miracle workers. But I think you and I both know it takes more than teacher training. This work is really systems work to support it. So an action plan can be that roadmap that kind of guides the work. And so first we're going to do this, we're going to train teachers, next we're going to do this, and then the next thing and the next thing and build upon that. And without a plan, that work can kind of go all over the place. And teachers and students may not get the support that they need and that they deserve. So we do an action plan for this to be a blueprint for how we want to build the system around an effective literacy program.
It just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Like, I think now we have this common understanding. So let's get into now what the literacy action plan actually looks like and where to begin. And before we do that, I want to just mention to you that what we did was we put together a literacy action plan, for you to download. So, feel free to look on our website. We'll have that available to you, and you can certainly make that customizable. Here's what the outside of it looks like, and here's kind of what the inside looks like, right? Right, Leslie?
Yeah. So what you see here is just a sample template. So this is certainly not the holy grail of literacy action plan templates. Folks can take it, customize it in any way, but what I would say is to make sure the template isn't too long or overly complicated. This needs to have very clear small steps that we can track, and it needs to be a document that guides the way and also shows us the progress that we're making.
So let's look at how to do that. Right?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? How? Okay, so this is a blown up piece of the first section of the template, and it really just asks for the name of the site and the names of who will be on the literacy leadership team.
So what is the purpose of a literacy leadership team?
Well, it's really important to have a group of people to do this work and create some shared ownership over it. So first of all, we know it takes a village to do anything, right? We all have our village people. And having this team allows each person to take responsibility for just a piece of it and to make sure that it gets accomplished. That way, if somebody leaves the school, the whole thing doesn't fall apart. So there are others who know and are responsible for continuing that work. So this is why having systems in place is so important. So if the principal is in charge of everything and they leave, what happens to all the work when a new person comes in? It all falls apart. But with a shared leadership team, it can really just keep rolling along. So that's the point of creating a literacy leadership team.
It's so important to Such a
Okay,
great.
so here's what it might look like. So we're going to show you each time like what the blank template looks like and then what it might look like filled out.
Sure.
So here we filled in, it's our sample school and team members, and notice who's on the team. So we've got grade level representatives, as well as the site and district literacy coaches, the principal, a parent, and even a student, if you can. I mean, I would put like a fifth grader on there. I think it would, or a sixth grader. I think it'd be totally worth it.
Yeah,
A lot
I
of
love
times
that
we
idea.
forget about our clients, right? So I think it'd be great to have a kid on there.
I think having a student's voice is so important. And of course, obviously, a parent voice as well. I love that idea.
Yeah, me too. So when building the team, try not to make it too huge because too many cooks, but
Right.
also try to represent a variety of stakeholders if you can. And then the other thing I would say is go with the willing and let it grow over time. So if you can't get someone from each grade level, that's okay. Start with the ones who are willing and build it from there.
What great advice. So the next part on the template is a place for data. Now, Leslie, we have data in so many places, right?
Yeah.
Why is it important to put it on the literacy action plan?
Well, you don't have to, but I think it's good to anchor ourselves in the reality of our data
Hmm.
and to know how kids are doing so we can keep their needs front and center. So, structured literacy approaches are anchored in data. So, we can make these precise decisions about how to address both student and staff needs. And the data is meant to be updated anytime. So, you don't put data on in August or September and then leave it all year. You change it as you do your assessments throughout the year. And the plan should continually change and grow as you get the work done and more needs arise. So people should not be afraid to make this a working document. It doesn't have to stay the same all year. It should be changing as you get things done, as you identify more needs, it should change as you go.
I love that. It's a living document for
Yeah.
sure. Let's look at what it looks like when you fill it out.
Yeah, so we didn't put all the data in. Instead, what I thought I'd start with is something simple. So you can do it simple like this and just put a snapshot of each individual grade level. But it's important to look at not just overall scores, but subgroups as well. So you really need to know who's struggling and how the plan can build in supports. And if you want to fill out all the rows of the data, and you can, of course, do that, but you don't have to. That might be overwhelming for some people. So it's really up to the individual site. How do you want to do it? What do you want to put on here? It's just important to see at least some of it so that you can anchor that in student need.
I love this idea of having the most recent data right there on the plan to actually guide the work.
Okay, so next on the template is a spot for goal setting. And this may seem sort of like a no-brainer, but when you have to articulate what it is you're trying to accomplish, it really helps focus those individual action steps. And I also like having district and school goals up front, so there's an alignment. So you're not seeing the district with one goal and a school site with a completely different goal. It's all alignment, and we're all putting our resources into this collective effort.
Sure. I think alignment is really key.
Mm.
And, I also think sometimes, districts have sometimes really lofty goals, right?
Yeah.
To say that they have all third graders will read,
Yeah.
by the end of the school year. And then maybe as a school, you feel like you can't accomplish that when you look at your data, when you see that
Yeah.
there, 8% of your students that are proficient. So I think this alignment is important, but also important to also have your own school goals, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. So I think it's really important. More resources and support can be funneled to schools if
Yeah.
everyone's on the same page, right? It really
Yeah.
does allow for some real understanding of where we are. So that's
Yeah,
a great
definitely.
perspective. Yeah.
So here's what it now all of a sudden there's a lot of writing on there. So here's what you might see for district and school goals. And let's say a district is transitioning from balanced literacy to structured literacy. An initial goal might be to train all teachers in the science of reading and the structured literacy model. And you could see the other goals that go along with that. And now look at the first school goal to ensure all teachers are trained in science of reading and structured literacy. So there's an alignment of the goals across the district and the school, which makes for a much smoother process. Everyone's working towards the same goal. And there's also a place to put in notes or reminders. I like the one here on the 5-year plan and that it takes time. This work, we talk to our districts a lot about, this is messy. It's not, just because you have a beautiful little plan in place doesn't mean that everything's going to be easy. It's going to be messy, and it takes time to shift an entire system. And the schools we work with, we say it takes 3 to 5 years to really get this implementation going. And you will be tweaking it all the time based on the students sitting in front of you. So, even though it goes back to that notion of we're putting this on paper, but it's not in cement. It's not in concrete.
Mhm.
We can put our ideas and notes on here, but we can also change it and adapt it as we need. So I think that's an important thing to remember.
I love that, on paper, but not in
In
cement.
concrete. Yeah.
I think that's so important. So really having those district initiatives, kind of like this, and the district initiatives that align with school goals, helps everyone to reach
Yeah.
the
We're
goal,
all on the
right?
same page. We're all heading in the same direction.
So I think one of the next things, right, is for us to look at how do we actually do the work. Like,
Yeah. And leadership is next on the template because it's pivotal. You have to have leaders who understand the system that's required to
mhm.
support effective instruction. So things like training teachers is, it's kind of an obvious thing, right? But what about teachers who come in new? What if they come in halfway through the year? Or what if teachers leave at the end of the year? How will they get trained? And what about assessment systems? Has the leader built in consistent time for administering assessments and then time for analyzing and discussing the results and what that implication is for instruction? So the job of the leader is to drive all of the systems work and those supports. And one thing to consider, though, is that it's not the leader's job to do every single thing on the template. That's why a team is there, to have this shared leadership over the work. So don't put the principal as the person responsible for every single thing on the entire template. Others can be responsible for things too. So you'll probably see the leader's name a lot in this particular section, but you shouldn't see the principal as being the one responsible in every section of this template, because you want other people to feel an accountability. And the more you spread the work out, the more people are invested in it because they have a little piece in it too. So it's really important.
So let's look at what this looks like.
Okay, so here's our little sample school. So the first action they decided on under leadership was to create the team. Yeah, you kind of need to do that first. You can't do anything until you have a team. And so
Right.
when we work with schools on this, that's what we do. We go, okay, you have a whole month to go get a team together. And so that's their first step. And we walk them through step by step throughout the course of a school year when we work with our districts. So putting the team together first, then you go on to scheduling regular team meetings so you can start the plan. It seems kind of obvious, but I'm a big fan of put every little baby step on here, because if you don't include the baby steps, they don't get done. It's not an automatic that people are going to do it. So I teach districts and sites to, put every little step on there and then look at all the things you can check off. I'm also a doer type of person. So I make a lot of checklists, and nothing gives me greater joy than checking things off. And so I think it's the same with this. You start to go, okay, we did that. We already put the team together. We scheduled our meetings, and now we're starting the draft of our plan. And so it also kind of propels you forward so that you feel like, oh, we're getting stuff done.
I mean, those, you got to record all the small wins, like you really do.
Yeah.
And small wins
Right.
add up to big wins later on.
Totally.
And I think that's so key, so important. So,
Yeah.
so I'm
Awesome.
glad you mentioned that. Yeah. So let's go to the next group.
Okay. So the next group on the template is teachers. And of course, teachers are key, right? This is where most people start thinking about, what do teachers need to reach the school goal? And you may need to see what teachers already know in terms of structured literacy and what they still need to learn. So they may need materials or coaching or training. And this is the place where you figure that out step by step.
And you know what I find the best way to do that
Yeah.
is ask them, what do you
Yeah.
need?
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like, us leaders, we barrel along and we
Yeah.
don't even ask them, well, what exactly do you need? We can never assume, and it can really be off-putting for
Yeah.
teachers.
Totally.
So it's important for them that they are absolutely a part of that leadership, and that their voices are heard, and that we ask them those important questions because they're right there in the trenches.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. So let's look at our example. So what did they do? So they said their first item on their list is develop a survey to assess the current knowledge in science of reading. And so notice the first step is not number 2, administer a survey. First, somebody has to actually create the survey. So who's going to do that? And that's what I mean by step by step. Think about the nitty gritty details when doing your plan. Then you'll be able to actually do it every step. Because if you don't have the first one on there, develop it, you're going to show up at the October staff meeting there, and you're going to be like, well, who created the survey? Where's the survey? Nobody did it. Or the same person is going to get dumped on to do everything. And so I love that they started with, who's going to develop it? Well, Miss Garcia. And Miss Garcia is the district coach, so she's going to take that on.
Sure.
And the other thing that we didn't point out in the template is that each section has, in our version of this, has a lead. So if you went back to the previous sections, like the leadership one, the principal was the lead. And this one for teachers is the district coach. And that makes sense because you want to put logical people as the lead of that section. And it doesn't mean that they're responsible for every single action. It just means that they're going to kind of make sure that everybody who's in their section is, check in with them. What do you need? Have you gotten this done? Well, how can I support you? That kind of thing. So we've done this with our pilot schools and it's part of our grant work. And it's been great because it distributes the leadership and everybody takes their section and really feels ownership over it. So it's a good thing to do.
Love it. And, I really want to make sure that people don't get in that habit of having what I used to call STPs. And sometimes I'd use that, Leslie, with my parent groups, but also like STPs are the same 2 people or the same 3 people.
STPs the same
or the same 10 people.
I'm sitting here going, what is she talking about? STPs, the same 2 people.
So make sure it's not the same, same people.
Yeah.
And again, you have these like really kind of granular,
yes,
less broad, goals. I think it's again so important to make sure that we can have the momentum that we need to move forward. So there's another group that we talked about in our 5-part series that a lot of folks really don't consider.
Yeah. So this is one of my favorite sections because we often leave paraprofessionals out of the work. And our instructional aides are so important. They are the ones who often work one-on-ones with students or in small groups. So we need to make sure that we support them, that they understand what this work is all about. And so this part of the template is a reminder to include them in the training and coaching work. We found that when we train the paraprofessionals, they are so excited and so appreciative, and they feel empowered because they have the same skills and knowledge to do the work that the teacher's doing.
Yeah.
And they want to do that. They want to be effective with their students, and they're starting to see, students progressing in their reading skills. And so they're like, wow, I taught that kid to read, it's really amazing. So important to remember our paras. Don't forget them.
Yeah. Don't forget them. So what it looks like to fill one of these out.
Yeah. So the first step, and notice the lead in this one is Mr. Young, and Mr. Young's just a teacher, but he decided to take it on. So their first step is to present the science of reading overview to paras at a monthly meeting. And so I think that's a great first step. And they haven't finished completing what they're going to do next, but it's a start, and that's okay. I like having incomplete sections on this as a model because I don't want people to think that there is a certain place that you have to begin in each of these sections. You begin where you need to begin. Yeah. And so I don't like to do too many examples because I don't want people to think, oh, well, we have to start. No, you start where you need to start in each category. Yeah. And so that there's a little bit of method to our madness of not showing a completely filled out template, because I think it can be stifling a little bit. People they don't think out of the box then. So, but there is good to have at least an example so you can see how it's going to go.
Indeed. What I love the most about our literacy action plan, Leslie, is what it does is it promotes conversation, and it really does promote evaluation of where you are now, so that you can be honest about what you need to do moving forward. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I said that paras were my favorite, but I may have stretched it because instructional coaches are honestly, what we have found in our work, the linchpin of whether a site is successful or not in implementing their literacy goals. So coaches are these middlemen. They are the glue that holds this initiative together. They have ears and eyes to the ground. They're in classrooms. They can provide both an aerial view of how the work's going across the school, but they can also get down to the nitty gritty and say, hey, Mr. Young really needs some support with materials. We need to get him some resources, that kind of thing. But often they need training and support too. So that's why they're on this template. So not just how are they going to support the teachers, which can also go here, but also how are we going to support our coaches? And do they have what they need to be effective? Do they need coaching techniques? Do they need training in actual reading strategies? Do they need training in structured literacy? So as part of our pilot work, we included coaching for our coaches, so that they could really hone their skills around all those things, so that they felt comfortable going into classrooms and helping teachers.
Yeah, I think it's such a great point. And I want to say that I think as a principal, I didn't always leverage my literacy coaches the way that I
Mm,
would have. And oftentimes, what happens is literacy coaches sometimes will fall back,
yeah.
substitute teachers and
Yeah. And it's
yeah.
like, oh, go do the LPAC testing and go be the VP today and go, they
Mhm,
get pulled.
mhm,
And I'm
mhm.
telling you, if you keep this role pure and they really are in classrooms, they can make sure that the initiative moves forward. It's
Yeah.
the coaches in our pilot have been absolutely indispensable. We could not have made this progress without them. Okay, so this school actually needs to hire an additional coach to support grades 3 to 5. So that's definitely a good place to begin. If you don't have any coaches and you have extra money. So here in California, we have this big coaching grant. So schools got money to hire coaches, and then they gave, like you started at the beginning of this webinar, they gave a consortium of county offices 25 million to support this work. So we're kind of lucky right now that there's all this money coming in to both support reading instruction and to hire coaches and give them training. So our stars have aligned a little bit, which hardly ever happens, but it's happened now. So we're really, trying to run with it, because now we have, a lot of people are in this exact place, like what you see on the screen here. They're hiring a coach, and then the next thing that they needed to do is get them training, because you may hire a coach, but they may or may not have specific training in what it is you're trying to accomplish. So we always anticipate that our coaches are going to need some support, and so we enroll them in a structured literacy coaching academy, and that's what this school decided to do. So really good example of think granularly. Think, what's the first thing? Well, if you don't have enough coaches, the first thing is to hire, and the second thing is to train them, and from there you can build out the program.
So now we're going to talk about one of my favorite groups.
Okay. Yeah. So the final section of this particular template talks about families. So I want to say a couple things about this. So educators sometimes point fingers, like we all do this, at students and families for student reading issues.
Rarely this, right? Rarely this, right?
Yeah. And some have actually said out loud in some of our trainings that there are certain cultures or ethnicities or groups that value education more. And this is a real pet peeve of mine, because it's 100% false to say that. And we need to address this mindset in schools.
Yeah.
Some families have access to resources to help their students when they struggle. They can send them to Kumon or whatever. But there is never a parent who does not want their child to learn. All families want their child to read. I have never sat with a parent who said, I hope my kid's illiterate. No one ever says that. Right. And they trust us, and that what we are doing, that our job is to teach our students all of the skills that they need to be proficient readers, writers, and speakers of the language. And they trust that what we're doing in school is going to get that done. And so we need to show them how they can support that work, not blame them for saying they don't care, because I know that they care. We all at a base level know that our parents care.
I remember I agree 100%. And I remember once sharing some data with a father. His son was not reading on grade level, and he came to us as a sixth grader and sharing the data with him, and he just was dumbfounded. And he said,
yeah,
I send my child to school every day.
Yeah.
I don't understand why.
Yeah.
He was working really hard.
Yep.
And just kind of trusted us, as you mentioned. But of course, wanted his son to do well. It's human nature to blame someone else for things that we struggle with, right? Families all want their children to succeed. And I also agree that we need to help them know what to do. So what I was able to do was to just acknowledge that parent where he was, how he was feeling, and then say, here's some practical things that we can do to support you. And here's what we promise to do as well.
Yeah. So here you see their first step is to collect information on how the families feel welcomed, connected, supported by the school community. And this is kind of a broad action step. So where would the survey come from? It's kind of like going back to the other one that we talked about. So who's going to make it? When and how will it be administered? And so the devil's in the details. And if we don't spell these things out, it won't ever happen.
So exactly. So what do we do?
Okay, so we break it down. And instead of having that broad goal, we have, okay, the first step is to create a family survey for back to school night. And who's going to do it? And when are they going to have it done by? When's
Sure.
that draft going to be ready? So
Yeah.
drilling down, right? Much more concrete.
Yeah. Love it.
And then the next thing is to actually administer the survey, right? So you
Yeah.
don't just create it, you got to have a time and place for when are we going to give it to our families. And then the last thing that you'll want to
Well,
do is,
even before you go there, here's what I want to acknowledge to you, which
yeah,
I think is great. You said QR code and a paper survey. Because there might be some folks that, again, they're on the go. They can take a
yep,
snapshot of that and they can do it on their phones versus
yep.
sitting down maybe at the school and doing it. So I love that you provided a variety of options for them to do that.
Yeah, it's all about making it accessible. I mean, parents will do it if it's accessible to them.
Yeah.
And so thinking about, do you need multiple languages? Does it need to be phone? Almost everybody has a cell phone these days. QR codes can take you right to it. They can do it on their phone. So we use
Hmm.
QR codes a lot.
Yep.
And then the last step that you have to do is not just think about administering the survey and creating it, but you have to actually look at the data. You have to set aside time to say, okay, what did we find out from all of this? What are our parents telling us? And then what are we going to do about it? So if you look at where we started and crossed off, it's just a way of showing, think really detail oriented when you do this work so that you can make sure that you're hitting everything that you need to do, every step in the process, and that it actually gets done.
Yeah, these three are much better. I mean, even though
Yeah.
again, it makes our list a little longer, it's more
Who
specific.
cares? The list
And
can be
again,
long because we're checking them off really fast.
yep. We're checking them off fast. We're getting some wins. We're feeling good. We're getting some momentum, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. So we started with the big fat nothing, right?
Right.
To now we have the start of a plan. So it can often feel when you see the blank template, you can think, oh God, I mean, I even get a little still. I've been doing this a long time and I still get just last week, actually, I sat with our pilot district and we had to revise our plan. And I was sort of dreading the meeting because I thought, oh, so tedious. You know what? We knocked it out in 20 minutes because all we had to do was make some updates and additions. And I thought, this is exactly how people feel. When you look at the blank piece of paper, you think, oh God, it's going to take so long. It's too much work. I can't do it. It's too overwhelming. But it's really not. When you have a village, I brought my village together. We all did it together. We went through step by step. What have we done? What do we need to add? What do we need to switch up for this year? And we had it done in no time. So it's really, just a great process when you have a whole team, and it doesn't have to be this humongous, scary, big ordeal. It can be a doable, kind of fun activity. And you
I
get to see where you're headed and what you've done.
I love it. It's so true. Like I think just remember also that every school's journey is different. Like
Yeah.
everyone needs to start somewhere.
Yeah.
That's how we get this work done, and we have to just
Totally.
let it grow over time. Yeah. So let's review some best practices.
Okay. So I think if you're gonna start this, first of all, take a look at the template and customize it. I mean, honestly, before even the points on the slide here. So
Yeah.
take a look at it and go, this is too much to bite off at once. Let's just do one section at a time. Let's just look at one section at a time. That's even fine.
Yep.
So the idea is start small and get some wins under your belt. I think you mentioned that earlier. Get some small wins. So
Yeah.
if your first step is just convene the team and schedule some meetings, boom, you got 2 steps done already. Just do something. Don't
Yeah.
wait for someone else to fix it. No one else is going to fix this problem. We have to take it by the horns. And
Yeah.
school sites need to be taking it by the horns. No magic fairy is going to come in and fix this problem we have in our country. We've got to be very clear on what we want and how we're going to get there.
Sure.
And so divvy up the work. Don't pile it up. Don't do that. What did you call it? STPs.
STPs. Yeah.
Thanks for people. I'm writing that down. STPs. Because it's so true. I was an STP when I was at a school site. My principal would always come to me because he knew I would always say yes. And it's like those people get burned out, don't do that.
That's
And
great.
then do small actionable items step by steps. And the big idea here is that if you don't do this, if you fail to plan, you just plan to fail because you will never get to all the pieces you need to in building a really strong, solid system for your tier 1 instruction if you don't have a roadmap to guide it.
Yeah.
So it's really important. Don't be a scared, as Oprah says. Don't be a scared. It'll be okay.
It'll be okay.
Yeah.
Build it and use it, right? I think that's
build it and use it.
Yeah. So Leslie, I want to thank you so much for coming back and talking about literacy action plans.
These folks are tired of me. Stop calling me Cheryl. Everyone's tired of me.
They're not getting tired of you. That can't possibly be the case. We know one of the things that we keep calling you back is because our listeners love you. You give some really great, very sound advice, and we've linked the resources here. And feel free to reach out for support. You can download your very own copy of the Literacy Action Plan and start putting it to use at your school.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.